Hi, everybody. My name is Brian Kaplan. I am a senior product manager for our network operations management portfolio here at Micro Focus, and I'm very happy to be talking with you today about the kinds of exciting things that we've been doing lately in this portfolio and some of the things that will be coming down the road. So what I want to do first is go through a quick disclaimer. As I mentioned briefly, we're going to be going through some roadmap items, and therefore we have a disclaimer that obviously some of this will be subject to change. And we'll talk about ways that you can provide inputs into our roadmap towards the end of the presentation. So I first want to set some context around where does network operations management fit within the Micro Focus strategy, especially as it relates to customers going through digital transformations. And we typically talk about four main areas. One is enterprise DevOps, two is hybrid IT management, three is security risk and governance, and then four is predictive analytics. And from a network operations management perspective, we primarily fit into that second bucket, the hybrid IT management area of capabilities. And so what does that mean? You know, typically when we talk about hybrid IT management, we're literally talking about hybrid IT's environment, right? There's different vendors, there's different technologies, especially as customers are moving to a digital business and digital transformations. You will be having to manage a lot of those things all at once, and how do we bridge the older technologies to the new? And so this is where network operations management comes in for the network infrastructure. So NOM can manage, automate, and ensure compliance across all the different kinds of network infrastructures that are out there, including physical, virtual, software-defined networking, wireless, and so forth. And if you look closer at our primary use case within hybrid IT management, where we talk about service assurance, we're supporting all the different vendors that are out there across those technologies. There's about almost 200 different vendors that we support today with the NOM solution. We provide high speed and really high accuracy and up-to-date information about the state of the network. Right, we're talking about what does the topology look like, what are the network nodes that are out there, what is the configuration data, for example, how the devices are currently configured, and so forth. And all of that is key to maintaining the network and troubleshooting and so forth. And then the final part of this first use case is around orchestration capabilities, around automating tasks that relate to network configuration backup or configuration deployment changes, OS upgrade automation, as well as a remediation action. Now, the secondary use case is around service governance within the hybrid IT area, and that's where our compliance auditing capabilities come into play, and we'll talk more about that here shortly. So if I dive in closer, look at what does network operations management look like, we provide a variety of capabilities across this hybrid IT environment. So first off is visibility and troubleshooting, right? So we need to understand what's in the environment from a network infrastructure perspective, what's the current state of everything, including not just the monitored state, but also the configuration state, the OS version state, and so forth. And all of that is key to being able to maintain and troubleshoot the environment itself. On top of that, we also collect performance metrics, a variety of performance metrics, so we understand how the network's behaving, how it might relate to different applications that are going across the network. And then we also start to offer automation capabilities, as I mentioned, in terms of not backing up the config, we're doing that earlier, but also pushing out configuration changes, updating the operating system, and so forth. And then we add on top of that the ability to monitor these advanced network services such as IP telephony, multicast, MPLS, VPN networks, and so forth. This is where we add the ability to audit compliance, as well as the ability to orchestrate different automation tasks together. And then across all these capabilities, we offer executive visibility. So this is a dashboarding technology that we use to show kind of live, high-level information about how the network is operating, and potentially could even relate that to different business data as well, to understand the state of the business, essentially. And then we're also starting to leverage a big data lake technology and associated analytics. And this is actually coming from our Vertica technology that's in the Micro Focus portfolio. So we do this across all the different kinds of technologies, the different vendors that we support. And we do this at high scale. So we have some of the best scalability in the industry with the most efficient footprints that are out there. So if I look at historically the types of capabilities that we've had really for the last couple decades, we've have a long and successful track record with providing monitoring for fault and performance on the network, for automating configuration, diagnostic or collecting the current state of the network devices, and auditing compliance. And this is coming traditionally from our experience working with NNMI, or Network Node Manager, as well as NA, or network automation. And then on top of that, what we're doing is we're starting to blend those capabilities together to offer new useful functionality and value for customers. And so one of those things we'll talk about called diagnostic analytics, and you'll see what the value is there in terms of reducing mean time to repair and recover from network incidents, for example. Executive visibility and process orchestration we've already talked about in terms of both dashboarding and orchestration of different automation tasks. And then frequently updated content. This relates to our device support initially, and that's around the bi-monthly device support updates that we provide, and so forth, and that's ongoing every other month. But we also provide on a monthly basis, for the most part, security compliance policies. These relate to vendor vulnerabilities we'll talk about in a moment, device vendor vulnerabilities. And then third is what we want to start doing is offering report content, and we'll talk about where we are with that. And then in the future, we've been working on, there's already been worked on our new modern user interface, and we'll do a quick demo of where we are with that later in the presentation. So we're really excited about this concept that we've introduced this year called a bridge upgrade. And the concept is specifically for the 2019.05 release, the release that came out in May of both NA and NNMI. We introduced this concept where if you're on much older versions of NA and NNMI, for whatever variety of reasons, you would be able to do a simple direct upgrade, one-hop upgrade to the 2019-05 release. And this provides a variety of benefits. First of all, new innovations. There's been a variety of new features that have been released over that period of time. We looked about 10 versions back. There's a variety of enhancement requests that we've implemented from you and other customers. And so you can take advantage of all that with a single hop, direct hop to that release 2019-05, which came out earlier this year. There's also improved quality. We've kind of taken another leap forward in terms of how we approach quality from a development perspective and testing. And so you'll see the results of that in the 2019-05 release. And then we also took a look at, over time, historically, what has been the upgrade experience that customers have seen, and how can we improve upon that, whether that be through documentation or how the upgrade process actually works, as well as we looked at decoupling the versioning between different Micro Focus components, whether they're within the NOM area or even broader integrations across the Micro Focus portfolio, so that you don't have to upgrade everything all at the same time, but you could upgrade different pieces and plan it out in a much easier fashion. And you can see on the right, there's some good quotes from some of our customers that have gone through this upgrade already, and they were very pleased with the results, the ease of it, and now they can take advantage of all these types of benefits that we've just talked about. So what I want to talk about next is recent innovations, and really these are things that you can take advantage of as you upgrade, to that bridge, with that bridge concept to 2019.05. So first of all, if you're a NOM customer, you'll be able to take advantage of what we call diagnostic analytics. And what this is about is taking data that spans both monitoring and our configuration automation capabilities, and bringing them together to help provide new solutions to how you troubleshoot and do that in a much faster manner. And so as you can see here, we have a performance graph. This happens to be interface output utilization there on the left. And as overlays, the two little indicators on the top part of the graph, the red and the blue indicators, those are moments in time when we detected a configuration change or a diagnostic change, or essentially a change to the running state of the environment. And you can see it's possible that the configuration change caused the performance characteristic to change on the graph because they happen right about the same, right around the same point in time. And you can click on those indicators. In this example, you can see what the configuration change was, and that all should help troubleshoot, I'm having a problem on the network. One of the first things you should ask is what changed, and this gives it to you all at your fingertips. Another area of benefit is this notion of three-dimensional compliance. Why do we call it that? Because there's actually three different dimensions of device data that we look at for auditing purposes. The first one is the obvious one, configuration, right? That's what everybody expects for auditing purposes, is you're auditing the configuration of the routers and the switches, for example, for what should or shouldn't be present in the configurations themselves. The second dimension is actually what we call diagnostic compliance, or really running state compliance. And this is the ability to audit the running state, issue commands on the infrastructure, and audit the output of those commands in the very similar way as we're auditing the configuration. And then the third dimension is software. So what are the appropriate software versions that should be out in the environment? These are kind of the three main dimensions of compliance, besides some other metadata that we know about the devices. And it provides a very holistic view of your compliance state, whether it be according to vulnerabilities or industry standards, or even perhaps your own internal standards. One of the things that we do with those capabilities is we build out security compliance policies that are based upon device vendor notifications of security vulnerabilities that may relate, for example, to a vulnerable operating system, or how the device is configured, or how the device is actually running. And sometimes and a lot of times really, it's a combination of those things that helps us to more accurately identify vulnerabilities in the environment, much less deviations from whatever standards that you expect in how the network is operating. So as an example of how you might visualize some of these things, compliance issues and whatnot, we have the dashboarding capability. So this is an example of a dashboard. We ship a variety out of the box that you can customize, that you can use as is, or create your own. And in this case, we're showing vulnerability information, compliance status. We're also looking at traffic information. And you can actually feed a variety of data into here, even beyond what NOM is able to provide. So you can bring a lot of third-party data into these dashboards as well. So it's a great technology for providing information, to your executive staff in terms of what's going on in the network, and more importantly, how is that impacting perhaps the rest of the business itself. Another area of innovation is this feature called a change plan. Now, for those of you that are longtime network automation customers, you may be familiar with the feature called command scripts, which is our main feature for automating the deployment of configuration change. And what we've done with change plans is we've gone to the next level and said, beyond just automating the actual change itself, let's put some intelligence around how we're deploying that change, meaning, can I set some conditions that have to be met before I would even proceed with the change, and have NOM automatically determine should I proceed or not based on your inputted criteria? Can I also then use conditions to validate the outcome? So besides just making sure that the syntax of the commands went in properly, can I actually validate that whatever I was trying to achieve was met? And maybe that's looking at the running state of the device after the fact, and using that to determine, was I successful or not with the change? And if my expectation was not met, then automatically rolling back, and having that all be defined as a self-contained unit that we now call change plans. So this is a very powerful feature that customers are taking advantage of, and that is also a feature that you'll gain access to as you upgrade through to the 2019-05 release through the bridge concept. And then I want to talk about some wireless monitoring innovations. We've gone deeper into what we were already doing for Cisco Wireless as an example, and so that we can represent in a much better way the logical relationship between the wireless controllers and the lightweight access points, and be able to monitor for a variety of performance metrics, both for the controllers and the access points, monitoring how the access points might logically change their relationship from one controller to the next and so forth, and doing this at scale. And so this is a great new innovation that we'll continue to expand upon in future releases as well. So now that we've talked about some recent innovations, what I want to do is switch gears and talk about some non-futures, some future functionality that we've been working on that I think you'll find of interest, and we'd like to hear your feedback about. So the first area is around the new NOM user experience that I alluded to earlier, right? The new NOM user interface is a part of that, and with this new UI, we've thought about it from a workflow perspective, right? What's the end-to-end of what customers are trying to do in different scenarios? And there were two workflows that we had in mind here to start with. One is compliance management, right? So managing compliance issues and remediating those issues. The second is incident management. And really the both are about finding out that there's a problem, visualizing that there's a problem, and doing that in the most efficient way possible, analyzing the data that we have and can provide for troubleshooting purposes, again, doing that in the most efficient way possible, and then automating the remediation itself to correct the problem. I'm going to switch to a demo for this, but I do want to mention this is not available for production today, but it is available for you to look at in your own labs and your own environments if you'd like to join what we call our external review program. So if you're interested in joining the ERP program, then please contact your sales team, and we would love to talk to you about what we're doing, both what we've done already, look at it in your lab, and gain feedback that way, as well as take a look at some future activity that we're doing. So with that said, I'm going to switch to the demo environment and do a quick demo of those two workflows. So to start off with, we're going to log in, get that out of the way. I want to log in to the Network Operations Management solution. And what we first come up with is a topology map. Topology map is, not surprisingly, showing the network infrastructure. This is as discovered in real time by a lot of the technology we have built over the years in our NNMI product. And what's here is we see node status, right? These are individual nodes, but the node status is actually a composite of two main pieces of information that we know about the node. One is what's the overall status of the node relative to fault and performance, and that's what's indicated by these little indicators on the bottom right. The bottom indicators on the left is actually representing the compliance state. So we're dramatically raising the visibility of compliance and issues that may or may not even relate to some of the performance issues that you're seeing here, so that your users and operators can have a quicker reaction to, okay, what's happening in the environment itself. Now, we made it flexible, however, so that if you want to, for instance, only look at fault and performance incidents, we can turn compliance off, and you'll see the status of the nodes changes accordingly. But what I'm going to do as we go forward in this demo is turn compliance back on and actually turn incidents off, because I want to focus on compliance first. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill in on this compliance issue with the node Canada. And this will take me to a listing of compliance rules that this particular node Canada is in violation of. And in this case, there's only one rule that it's violating. It happens to be a compliance rule that we deliver as part of a security vulnerability policy. And it deals with an issue with the Cisco IOS HTTP server. Now, we also indicate how many nodes are impacted by the same by the same rule. There's actually 29 devices in my lab that should be compliant with this rule, but 6 of them, including Canada, are actually out of compliance. So I can tell, okay, how prevalent is this problem as I troubleshoot it, perhaps from this one device perspective. Now, if I drill into the rule, we can see some more details about the rule. It's actually, as I mentioned, a Cisco iOS vulnerability. So, for example, this was mentioned on there, on the Cisco's pcert service, if you will. There's a CVE number associated with it. And what we see here, though, is here's the 6 devices that are actually violating this rule. And I can take a look at, by clicking on these, what are the actual details of why this device is out of compliance with the rule. And it happens to be partly because the device is running a vulnerable operating system version, and it's also because the device is running the HTTP server, right? We see that that's turned on in the configuration. So that's for that first device. If I look at another device like Mexico, same kind of information. The iOS version may be different, but it's another vulnerable version, according to, in this case, Cisco. And I also know that the HTTP server is running, and it should not be. And then I can also look at Canada as another example. Again, the OS version may be different, but it's still a vulnerable OS, and it also is still running HTTP server. So a short-term mitigation to this might be simply turn off the HTTP server, right? Turn off the vulnerable service. That might be a short-term mitigation, and then longer term, you might upgrade the operating system. So what I'm going to do is I could select all the devices, or I can select maybe just these bottom 3 for demonstration purposes, and I'm going to go ahead and deploy a change plan. Remember, we talked about change plans as the mechanism for making and automating changes in the environment. And so what you'll see is, by default, NOM is recommending in this UI, you should run this existing change plan that's called disable HTTP for that particular CVE number. And the reason that's coming up is because I've already associated that change plan to this particular rule, essentially to prompt the user to say, this is what we recommend, for remediating the problem. Now, you can, if you still want to, deploy these other change plans, but this is the change plan that we believe will best remediate the issue itself. The asterisks are just a visual cue so that you understand which change plan is associated with for remediation purposes for this rule. So I'm going to go ahead and hit deploy. And now that will submit for an automated task to go out to the devices and to essentially turn HTTP off. And if I go over back to the network overview map, you'll quickly see the 3 nodes that I'm fixing. Now you see them turn green. Okay, so that's kind of a quick remediation example there. If I go to the rules page, this is a broader view of, let me see what all the rules are that are in violation across my entire inventory. So I have 4 rules that are in violation across my lab inventory, one of which, by the way, is the same one that we just remediated. There were 6 devices that are vulnerable before. Now there's 3 because we only did 3 to remediate. So if I click on it, I come back to the same page. Here's the 3 devices that remain that I haven't fixed, and I can go through the same routine as we just did. So it's kind of a quick view through the compliance flow, and I want to switch over to looking at an incident management perspective and troubleshooting exercise. So now I'm going to turn the overlays back on for incidents, and I'll see that I have one particular node in this particular node group. This topology map is showing by node group, and we're looking at this group called network infrastructure devices. And in this case, it's one node that has some kind of performance issue. I'm going to click in on the performance indicator here on the Americas node. Very similar to the compliance flow, I can see whatever open key incidents are here. As many of you likely know, we're doing root cause analysis already to come to these open key incidents. So we can come to some root cause here. But this is a high output utilization incident. There may be other symptoms that rolled up into this. But I'm going to click into it to do some troubleshooting. And what you'll find is, by default, we'll show any graphs or metrics that we think are relevant to solving this particular kind of incident. In this case, an interface output utilization is high. Now, because we only started monitoring not long ago, the graph is a little bit bunched up here. So I'm going to adjust the time period. I customize the time period I'm looking at here, which will update the graph. And I can see now here's the performance graph for interface utilization. But as you saw in the slides, I have these overlays, right, of when is the moment in time in real time, really, when a configuration change was detected or when a diagnostic change was detected. Diagnostic change, again, being we detected some change to the running state of the device. So I can actually click in on the configuration indicator and see the details of what the configuration change actually was. So in this case, I can see that the old configuration here is on the left. We're just showing a little bit of context around it. The new configuration is on the right, and the configuration change is highlighted, right? We took this deny statement and moved it below a permit statement in this access list 198. Might cause some problems, as some of you may know. So basically, we may very well inadvertently allow more permitted traffic through the interface. Now, let me take a look at the diagnostic data, which also didn't happen much soon after the performance. The utilization went up, and I can see this is the output of the automated data access for showing what the access list hit counts are. Right, what kind of traffic is flowing through the access list on the interface. And I can see this permit statement, the very one that changed its location, actually the hit count changed. So it used to be 91 matches, but now it's almost 7,000 hits. So the change to the access list caused a lot more traffic to go through. Therefore, it's likely that that's what caused the higher interface utilization that we're now seeing on the graph. That's causing some problems. Now, what I can also do is I can troubleshoot further and take a look at maybe some other metrics that I'd like to see if they might help me also troubleshoot this problem. So I can edit this dashboard, and I can then look through all the different metrics that we have about this device. And by the way, these metrics are stored in the data lake that I mentioned earlier. And so I want to add maybe another graph to this dashboard called for volume, looking at it in megabytes. So I can add that to the dashboard, scroll down, and I'd be able to see now this volume megabytes graph. I can see that curve, and I still see the overlays. I can also maybe add some other graphs. Maybe I want to add the volume in terms of packets heading outbound. And so I added that. I'll scroll down to that graph. It's a similar kind of graph, but now I still have the indicators there. And again, these things might help me to troubleshoot what the problem might be. Maybe this time I'll add CPU. And so I'll add CPU 1 minute utilization. That will add to the dashboard page. I see a CPU curve again with the same, overlays of configuration and diagnostic change. So now I think I have enough information for me to really figure out what's going on. I think based on all of this, I really think it's that access list change that really did it and caused the issue here. So I'm going to go ahead and take an action against this America's device called deploy change plan. Now, I could look through the existing library of change plans that I've configured already. What I'm actually going to do is just do a one-time change plan to correct this problem. I just need to tell NOM what mode should the device be in to run the change. So this will be iOS configuration mode. It happens to be an iOS device. I'll enter the change script, what changes I want to make. In this case, I want to reorder the deny statement ahead of the permit statement. I'll go ahead and click on deploy. And then what I want to do is I want to change the time period and just stay on this page, and I want to see if what I just did fixed the problem or not. So I'm going to adjust the time. The graph will update, and I can see that a configuration change occurred. That was the change I just made, and I see right around that same time, the performance graph, the utilization starts to come back down. And in fact, if I take a look at the change, I can validate, yeah, my permit statement is now moved below the deny statement, and we're now appropriately blocking traffic that shouldn't have been going through that interface. So this is kind of a very quick run through of two different scenarios, very similar, that you want to visualize something fast. In our case, we started from the topology maps, get into the troubleshooting pages here to get into the details of what happened, and then be able to take some remediation action. Now, we'll continue to expand upon both these workflows and add additional workflows as we go forward. And as I mentioned, if you're interested in taking a closer look at this in your own environment or talking to us about ideas that you might have, we'd be happy to have that conversation. And so talk to your sales team about joining our external review program, and we can continue the conversation there. So let me switch back to the remainder of the presentation and talk about, another future area for us is our reporting strategy. This is not a NOM-specific reporting strategy, but rather a strategy across our IT operations management portfolio. And so you can see here, we're trying to get to a common platform, and we've been working towards a common platform for the collection of data, for the storage of data, and then how we apply analytics, dashboards, reporting, and so forth on top of all that. And so that's what we call our COSO strategy: collect once, store once. The store once aspect is actually backed up by a Vertica database that is part of the Micro Focus family of products, and that's what's providing the big data lake as well as an analytics platform for us to use in the future. And as you can see so far in the ITOM portfolio, the hybrid cloud management team, the operations bridge team, and of course the network operations management team are already starting to leverage this and start to work on how we can use this going forward for our common customers. And so what we've been doing a variety of work in that already for this year. And what we've done in 2019-11 release that just came out is we've been building, well, first of all, we're collecting interface and component health metrics. Those are similar to the performance graphs that we just saw in the UI demo. That was actually one method of consuming the data that we're collecting in this strategy into the big data lake. We also have been building report content leveraging our business value dashboard technology, another shared component. You saw an example of a dashboard before. These screenshots are examples actually of reports, as well as you can see in the screenshot in the back. It's a little small, but you can see the an ability to customize what's the dashboard in real time, or really report in real time in terms of what time period you're looking at, or that's a top N report. So what's N? How many top 10 nodes, top 20 nodes, for instance, and so forth. And you could also customize, in this case, the node group that you're looking at. Customers can customize their own and create their own reports through BVD, or the intention is for us to make all the data accessible. We'll publish the schema, and you can point your own business intelligence tools at this data to create your own reports with those other third-party tools as well. Now, all this capability is also currently only available within the external review program. We haven't yet released it for production purposes, but again, happy to talk to you about other more detailed views of what we're doing here, as well as maybe ideas that you have for reporting or dashboarding and so forth, maybe even analytics as well, so because we'll be looking at that as well. So let me come to the end of the presentation here in terms of where can you find out more information. There's really two main sites, I'd say. One is the NOM webpage, which is on microfocus.com, and that's where you can find some case studies from customers and high-level information about the product. And then what's, I think, also very useful is the non-practitioner site. This is where we have the documentation. We have customer discussion forums there. Our idea exchange is located there. We've been posting videos, and so it's really a great resource for all things, not only NOM, but also in the ITOM portfolio. And I also would encourage you to think about attending our Universe events. There's 2 events next year. One is at The Hague in the Netherlands in March. The other is in San Antonio, Texas in May. And these are great face-to-face events. Our executives are there. Our product management team, including myself, is typically there. And it's a great way for you to learn about what we've been doing, get some more hands-on in terms of demo stations and possibly labs, and things like that through workshops. So maybe mark your calendars. You can click the link to get more information, and we would love to see you there. I think it's a great opportunity for us to talk about how we can help you and your management of networking. So with that, I want to thank you for your time. And I hope to see you and talk to you guys all real soon. Thank you very much.